9 of House of the Dragon. So, like some of my previous videos, I am going to start with an episode recap and then just go through some interesting moments and details from the episode. So, with that, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Upon the discovery of the corpse of King Viserys, Queen Alicent seeks the counsel of her father, Otto Hightower. She tells him of her last conversation with Viserys from the night before, in which she mistakenly interpreted his last words to mean that he wished for their firstborn son, Prince Aegon, to become king after his death. Alicent and Otto call for an emergency meeting of the small council, in which they announce both Viserys' death and his supposed last wish. Some members of the council immediately accept Aegon's ascension to the Iron Throne, to Alicent's surprise. The Queen then realizes that Otto and some council members had been preparing and conspiring for Aegon's ascension without involving her in their plans. Meanwhile, Master of Coin Lyman Beesbury is outraged by this scheme and argues against the possibility of Viserys naming Aegon his heir when the king had so staunchly defended and propped up his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, in his lifetime. In response, Sir Criston Cole delivers one of his infamous temper tantrums and kills Lyman. When Alicent asks of the fate of Rhaenyra and her family, Otto says that the princess will be given the opportunity to bend the knee to the new King Aegon II, but Alicent knows Rhaenyra would never do so. This leaves one option: kill Rhaenyra and her children, thus disposing of any living challenge to Aegon. Alicent deems this option unacceptable, wishing to spare their lives. After the tense meeting, Alicent and Otto set off in search of Aegon, each with opposing objectives. When it becomes apparent that Aegon has fled the Red Keep, Otto sends 2 knights, twin brothers Sir Auric and Sir Eric, to find him. Meanwhile, Alicent charges Criston and Prince Aemond to recover Aegon. Both search parties explore known haunts of the missing prince in King's Landing, including a brothel and a fighting pit in which children are forced to battle to the death. In the latter location, Sir Auric and Sir Eric discover one of Aegon's bastard children. Finally, a spy working for Mysaria has the brothers arrange a meeting between Otto and her boss. Mysaria, who has hidden Aegon, exchanges his location for Otto's promise that the children's death pit will be shut down under the new king's reign. She also helpfully reminds him that no ruler can rule without the consent of his people. The brother knights at last locate Aegon, but they are confronted by Criston and Aemond, who wrest the prince from the knights' capture. Aegon, bereft, begs for an escape, wishing to flee the city so as not to assume the duty and burden of king. He is refused. Back at the Red Keep, Alicent pays a visit to Princess Rhaenys, whom she had kept locked in her chambers to keep her from fleeing. Alicent asks for Rhaenys' support of Aegon's claim to the throne. Alicent appeals to Rhaenys' ego, saying that she, not Viserys, was entitled to inherit the Iron Throne due to both her birthright and her sensibilities as a leader. "We do not rule," Alicent says, "but we may guide the men that do." Rhaenys provokes her back, saying, "Yet you toil still in service to men. Your father, your husband, your son. You desire not to be free, but to make a window in the wall of your prison. Have you never imagined yourself on the Iron Throne?" After, Alicent confronts her father, declaring her independence from him upon realizing she has been a piece he's played in his political games for power. She also announces she intends to send true terms to Rhaenyra so that she may accept her loss of the crown without shame. Otto warns her that this mercy will lead to rebellion from her and her allies. Meanwhile, Sir Eric helps Rhaenys flee the Red Keep. While outside the castle walls, the two are separated as crowds of people are herded into a chapel where the coronation of Aegon is set to take place. Rhaenys is shuffled into the ceremony where Aegon, encouraged by applause and cheering, begins to embrace his new role as king. However, Rhaenys takes the feat as an opportunity to retrieve her dragon from the dragon pit. In the midst of the celebration, she bursts from underneath the floor of the chapel, now clad in armor and with her dragon in tow. She has her beast face the Hightower family and she may utter the fatal command Dracarys and put an end to their treason by setting the family on fire. As she contemplates, Alicent steps in front of her son, placing her body between Aegon and the dragon. She shares a brief, desperate look with Rhaenys before bowing her head and closing her eyes, accepting her fate. Instead, Rhaenys' dragon lets out a mighty screech before flying off and away from King's Landing. The Hightowers' long-time plan to usurp the throne from Rhaenyra upon Viserys' death has at last been put into action, with Aegon now seated on the Iron Throne. So that was all for the episode recap, and now I am just going to go through some interesting details and moments from it. The opening credits have changed. Viserys' symbol is now filled with blood, indicating his death, and instead of following the bloodline of Rhaenyra, which the credits have previously done, we switch to Alicent and her descendants. Alicent's symbol represents House Hightower combined with the faith of the Seven. We see 4 bloodlines coming off Alicent and Viserys' union. Aegon II, Helaena, Aemond, and a child we haven't seen yet, Daeron. Meanwhile, we get a close-up of the symbols for Alicent's other 3 children. A spider for Helaena, a naked woman lying on top of what could be a dragon egg for Aegon II, and a sapphire for Aemond. You might remember from earlier in the season that Sir Harold Westerling was Princess Rhaenyra's sworn protector when she was growing up. So it's no wonder he refused to murder her. The little kids we see are Helaena and Aegon II's twins, Jaehaera and Jaehaerys. Helaena repeats her beast beneath the boards warning in this episode, which many fans theorized was a future plot from the book, but now seems likely to have been a prediction about Rhaenys bursting through the dragon pit on her dragon Maleys. Lord Caswell, whom Otto murders in this episode, was one of Rhaenyra's primary supporters at court throughout the season. We saw him offer his service to her after she gave birth to Joffrey, and he was the one who greeted her when she arrived at the Red Keep in last week's episode. While this episode is the first time Otto meets Mysaria, aka the White Worm, he has been dealing with her for many years. Back in episode 4, we saw a boy deliver a message to him from the white worm. The same boy later handed Mysaria the money Otto had clearly paid in exchange for information about Rhaenyra. If you can't tell the difference between the twin Kingsguards, Eric is the one wearing his tunic open with a slightly longer beard, while Eric is all buttoned up with a shorter, tighter beard. Eric is the one who is the sworn protector of Prince Aegon, so he knows the true nature of the prince and expresses his doubt over his ability to rule. The sept where Aegon II is found is where Alicent and Rhaenyra were talking and praying together earlier in the season. It was our first hint of Alicent's religious beliefs, which have only deepened as she's grown older. Alicent choosing Aegon the Conqueror's crown for Aegon II is huge symbolically. It highlights not only his Targaryen lineage and therefore his claim to the throne, but also his connection to his namesake and the idea that he, too, is another conqueror of Rhaenyra and her supporters. Or so the Greens hope, at least. It's also telling that the crown rests on a green pillow. Aegon II might be dressed up in Targaryen clothes, but it's Hightower green that supports him. Rhaenys seems to spare Alicent and her family as an act of compassion from one mother to another. Alicent's protectiveness over her children and her panic about them seems to have been what Rhaenys was taking in before she turned away. Rhaenys, having lost both of her children, knows all too well about the pain. Or she could have been giving an "I could have killed you, remember this" moment. Both sides show mercy in this episode. Alicent refuses to have Rhaenyra and her family murdered, and likewise, Rhaenys declines the opportunity to kill Alicent and her kids. So that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much